We can make this work. Hey everyone, my name is Jason from GameRave.com, otherwise known as Danger Boy, and this is GameRaveTV. So for this episode, we're going to deal with the 500-pound gorilla that existed in 1998, and that is Bleem. So the question is, what is Bleem? Bleem, which apparently stands for Best Little Emulator Ever Made, is a computer emulator for PlayStation games. And what makes this psychotic, in hindsight, is that this was a retail legal emulator. The way it worked is the two guys that made Bleem, one of them basically rebuilt the PlayStation's processing ability through assembly, but he did it by reverse engineering it and was able to figure out how to do it without the system BIOS, which is usually a needed part for an emulator to work. Now, that being said, most people don't care about an emulator because, hey, it's just an old system, who cares? This came out in 1998/99. That was the PlayStation's, biggest ever year. PS2 had, just been a whisper on, not even thought about yet, per se, as far as, retail goes. So, to walk into a game store and see a $200 PlayStation or a $30 Bleem disc to play on your PC, that was a huge price difference to take into effect. Now, what made Bleem so interesting, just from an actual product standpoint, is that in a normal situation with a computer, if you have a computer game, you would have the actual physical disc, and then somewhere on the case or in the manual there would be what's called a CD key. And the CD key was basically a serial number that you'd have to register into the program to confirm that you actually own the product legitimately. Bleem didn't have that. In Bleem's case, when you first put the disc in, you control-dragged its install feature to the desktop and not copy it, but then the CD itself act as the CD key. It was a key CD. Even if you had downloaded Bleem from their website, you still had to have a physical disc. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, but there's a whole bunch of separate different tracks that basically acted as the anti-piracy measures, but it was cracked in 2 weeks of release anyway, so it didn't really matter. I tried 7 different ways across 4 different things to try and get the damn thing to run, and I spent $20 on a computer tower from Savers that had Windows 98 running on it, and I still couldn't get it to work right. Not through emulation, Parallels, VMware, VirtualBox, the real thing, 2 different towers I had. It was not happening. However, I couldn't get the PC version to run, but I was able to get the Dreamcast version running. Now, when Bleem came to Dreamcast as Bleemcast, there were a lot of hopes and dreams the team had that just would not have been realized, and were not realized to a degree. Originally promised to have hundreds of games on a disc, and by games I mean the actual emulator program, not the game itself. They were only able to do 3 games, and each game had its own separate release. This is actually the one for Gran Turismo 2, and the Dreamcast discs are actually a lot cooler than the PC Bleem, just because on the CD it just has all these super thank yous to everyone involved in the making of it, just some other cool stuff like that. And actually, this is a swap disc. You'd actually throw this disc into the Dreamcast first, and then once it prompted you, you'd throw in Gran Turismo. There were 3 total discs released: Tekken 3, Metal Gear Solid, and Gran Turismo 2. That being said, we'll let Gran Turismo 2 run side by side while we discuss some of the merits of the Bleem disc. For the Gran Turismo 2 one, it was actually pretty crazy. It actually ran the game at 640 by 480 resolution with the 3D graphics. It actually filtered and cleaned up the textures and smoothed them out, basically providing anti-aliasing, which means Bleem did something the PS2 couldn't. Don't even get me started on that. What was also interesting is, had Bleem been able to follow through and continue being manufactured, there actually was what was called the Bleem pod, And the Bleem pod would have basically been a little accessory plugged into the Dreamcast, so you could actually use your PlayStation and memory cards and controllers. Since they don't have that produced, you can actually use a Dreamcast controller, obviously, in a VMU for the memory card. The only trick is the VMU basically gets taken over and you need the entire VMU to act as a memory card. The only real downfall to Bleem had with the 3 versions that came out was that, despite making the games look amazing, they were a little darker than you normally would have seen on the PlayStation. That was really the only downfall. So the question is, what happened to Bleem? The money game. Basically because Sony didn't want a loss of hardware sales for a $170 cheaper emulator, despite not really working that great at the time. They basically took Bleem to court, sued them a whole bunch of different ways, basically kept them off the market as best they could. Long story short, despite Bleem having the upper hand in the argument and the court case, the legal fees were just too much for them. They had to close up shop. Literally just a footnote in the PlayStation's history nowadays. The Bleemcast beta is actually a decent time waster if you can find it. If you do a search for Bleemcast Blue and have the proper CD burning abilities, you can basically burn the beta disc that allows you to throw any disc into the Dreamcast. The catch being that obviously the compatibility was just bonkers, off the wall, stupid. Most games didn't work, or if they didn't work quite right, or had long loading times, etc. That being said, that's pretty much all there is for the Bleemcast episode. Like I said, it was probably the only time in history where there was an actual legal emulator on the market for a system that was still active at the same time. Just absolutely bonkers. Oh man, those are the days. But that brings us to our first Patreon shoutout. Hey everyone, this is actually pretty cool. I not only get to do my first Patreon shoutout, I get to do shout-outs. I had actually originally recorded this video to thank the first person that pledged to us, and in trying to do the video, we got our second pledge. So to Seamus B and Jeff, thank you so much for your pledges. Jeff, as soon as the postcards get here from Staples, I will get your drawing out and send it on its way. For the rest of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, check out the link right here. It's also going to be down below in the post. Game-Rave is now part of Patreon. And what Patreon is, it's kind of like Kickstarter, but instead of sending money for an actual physical product, you're basically tipping or contributing and helping fund your favorite thing. In this case, GameRaveTV. For more details, just click the link below it and head to the Patreon webpage. We got all the details over there. Just a cool thank yous, getting your name on the website, shout outs over here, postcard, my hand drawing on there. Again, thank you so much, guys. We're officially on our way, and I cannot wait to do more and more of these thank you videos. We'll see you guys next episode when we get back to the letter game. Have a great one, guys. Take care.